Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Odyssey 40k podcast. This week, I am accompanied by Charlie Kang. Welcome, Charlie. How you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you, mate?
Very good, thanks. Charlie is one of the other coaches that came. He was actually the head coach for the Team NZ this past year at WTC. I was one of his lowly subjugates underneath him, so he showed me the whip when I needed it and was able to support me when I needed it as well. We're quite close. We're good friends. But today we're actually going to be talking about the New Zealand meta. A lot of my videos have been a lot more generic. This one's going to be really pointed to what's happening in New Zealand. How are people playing in New Zealand? What kind of armies are people taking? Is there like this divergent meta that people are talking about? There's this USA meta, there's the UK meta, there's the Europe meta. Is there a New Zealand meta? That's kind of the question I'm going to answer today. So let's get straight into it. So yeah, awesome. Firstly, Charlie, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing okay. It's a long weekend for us here in New Zealand, so I've been really enjoying that. It's been a pretty stressful couple of weeks, planning events, doing podcasts. Patricia's upped it to once a week now, so always trying to get content out there. But we don't know if you caught it, but we tested our first live stream today, awesome. which was pretty cool. So hopefully bring some more live content, videos, battle reports, just fun things, right?
Very cool.
It's
amazing exciting. What Tactical Chilli Wargaming, which is what Charlie is a part of, is doing for the community as a whole. They're running events. There's a teams event next weekend as of recording, which I'm super excited for. I've got a team in it. I'm really trying to do very well. Charlie actually there's a Chilli Cow Cartel also have a team, which is part of the team Charlie's on. So it's going to be a really exciting event. There's some really good teams there and really looking forward to it. And if it wasn't for Tactical Chilli, the event wouldn't be on and I wouldn't be playing as much 40k as I am. So really appreciate everything you and Patricia are doing.
Thank you. Got to get a team event for you before you move down deep south, right?
Oh, mate, yeah. I definitely need. I have so much 40k in the next wee while. I have Immortal Chili's, then I have a week off, then I have Lakes of Blood, then I have Ultimate Nats in Wellington, then I have the Voss Victory Cup, which is my leaving party from Rotorua. All in the next month is absolutely stacked, which I'm excited for. And then the weekend after that, I move down to Dunedin, so it's pretty fun. Awesome. But really looking forward to it. It's gonna be fun.
I still have to sign up for the Voss Victory Cup.
It's the one. You need to be there, mate.
Yeah. Better be a trophy with your face on it, mate.
I hope so. I'll get Alexis onto that. Alexis, if you're listening to this, you can use this. Yes. You have permission. But yeah, let's get into some questions. This is what everyone's here for anyway. So the first talking point I have today is, how big is the competitive scene in New Zealand? How many people play competitively? How many people go to tournaments? How many people that go to tournaments play at actually a competitive level, or are they just trying to get some games in?
We've both seen some of the competitive scenes overseas. People talk about 900-man events or the UK TC circuit. Every single weekend they have something on that's over 100 people, right? So I think in the grand scheme of things, if you look at numbers, we're probably on the smaller side. We'll get maybe 20, 25 competitive people to a GT type thing, 15 to a one-dayer. But if you look at population size per capita, in New Zealand, we always talk about per capita. We're probably hitting well above our weight because we are getting up into the 30s and the 40s for some of the GTs. I know I've been to some Kraken events where it's been 38, 42, that kind of numbers. So it's up there, I'd say. And given our distribution of where everybody is as well.
There's definitely a prevalence towards the Upper North Island, I would say, like the Auckland region. There's definitely the most 40k there, but there is other pockets. There's a decent pocket in Wellington as well, and there's a decent pocket in Christchurch. I think the Christchurch pocket is a little smaller, but I think all of them are pretty good and have some very strong competitive players in each of them. So it's really interesting. You got it.
So I was going to say, I think there's also a huge online element that us who play in physical tournaments and in-person tournaments may not even be across, right? Because I don't play a lot of TTS, I don't play Alpha League, I don't play some of the online stuff. And guess we found Johnny Larson.
Yeah, old Johnny Larson.
So before we found Jonty, he had never played in a tournament in New Zealand. And he lives in Hamilton where Immortals run OTT. He lived an hour away from all the Auckland events. He'd never played an in-person tournament.
Yeah.
But he dominated TTS. And when we found him, after we found him, he was like one of our best players, right? On WTC, going both times, and then coming fifth in War Masters last year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
Absolutely
what a
amazing.
champion, yeah. But no one knew about John T 24 months ago.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's a big thing. I think
yeah,
New Zealand as a whole is like kind of opened up to in the last year as well. Is like
yeah,
TTS, like New Zealand runs a TTS League that runs every month, which is run by Nari Wilson, who was Team NZ's captain last year. So she's just
yeah.
running that, which is really awesome. And yeah, I think just getting people playing more 40k is really important, especially if you're trying to grow a community and grow that competitive scene. If you have people like John T, these other like big names in the New Zealand scene that are playing in this TTS league, it means everyone that's playing in that league gets to play against these very strong players, and you can kind of see how people play. I think the best way to get better at 40k is to play against someone better than you.
Yes.
Like that's how I've done all my growth, was through all my losses, losing to Michael,
Yes.
losing to Hayden, losing to all the known people, and losing to Finn, and when Tyranids were obscene.
I mean, like,
and
Finn and Michael, yeah, losing to Hayden, no.
yeah, losing to Hayden would hurt. So I think I've only actually ever drawn against Hayden, which is quite funny. And that was when, I think there was a Harlequin off as well. That was back when
I have beaten Hayden.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, beautiful.
That's good.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I think if you... Oh, sorry.
No,
I was going to say...
Go ahead.
Because, we've Tactical Chili's run a couple of 2-dayers in Auckland this past year, just, starting out. But what I have observed is definitely the ratio of competitive players and really, really good, established players in the community. There's definitely a higher ratio from some of the other events that I have attended. So in other events, you might have like maybe the top 20% would be the equivalent, national level, or have won GTs or podium or top 5, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas if you remember when we ran the 2-dayer, what was it called? The Sandwind one, the one the Spice Must Flow. With the fun trophies. I think we had maybe half or a little bit more, like maybe 8 members that were Team New Zealand or Team New Zealand adjacent, and then we had a whole bunch of others that were established competitive players in the community as well that have achieved good results, winning other tournaments.
Yes.
So in the field, I think we only had 28 people in the field, but maybe 20 of them were someone that had a chance at podium, right? Yeah.
Had a chance of contention for it, which is
right,
that's
good
absolutely
list,
amazing.
and
Absolutely amazing. So I think the competitive scene in New Zealand is actually thriving, and I think it is kind of what you're alluding to. It is the best it has been ever. I think there's more people trying as hard as they can, and like in a good spirited way. I think New Zealand also has a really great culture of trying to play by intent and playing the game correctly, instead of just being like trying to win at all costs. We don't really have a lot of that in New Zealand. It's really like a good community of competitive players.
I'd say not anymore, because I have heard stories.
Yes.
Like in the early days, maybe 6-7 years ago, maybe there was still a bit of that. But I think with GW doing a much better job at balancing things as well, and driving towards more teams events, because we didn't have teams events 6 years ago, right? 5-6 years ago, it's really brought about a much more interesting kind of level of play as well. Much better sportsmanship.
Teams events are also the best events. I have a whole YouTube series that I'm going into on specifically Teams 40k because it is my favorite. The videos aren't doing that great, but I'm going to keep doing them because I absolutely love Teams 40k, and it is just the best, and I want to spread as much knowledge as I can about it, because that's the way that I can kind of give back to teams as much as I can. Okay, on to the next question, just so we're not dragging along for too long. We kind of went over that one. So the next question was, what size tournaments does NZ usually run? And I think they're from about, you have your 1-dayers, which are about 20 people max, and then you have the larger events, which are up to about 40, 50. Some teams events, I think, have hit 60, if I'm not mistaken. I think.
Yes, if it's 12 teams, Kraken ones are usually 12 and up. I think the last one was 16 teams, so 80 people. 80
players? Okay.
Yeah, so we've hit 80. So there is the player base to do close to a 100-man singles event, but then not everyone plays singles. A lot of people only play teams. They get dragged in by their mates. There's, from what I've seen, a lot of garage hammer as well. A lot of people that don't actually play in tournaments, but they just play at home. So, it's about how do we grow kind of that player base and have an event for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there's like a kind of like a balancing act between singles and teams, right? Like, teams is a lot more work for the entire team a lot of the time as well. So like, you don't want to have those every event, right? You still want some
No.
singles events in there, and some people don't want to play as a team, and that's totally fine. If that's what you want to do, that's you. Go for it. But I think having a balance of, I think, like me personally, I would love like a 2 teams to 1 singles, but more likely it's probably the other way around, where you have 2 singles events for every teams event you have. And that's probably a really great balance, because if you're doing 6 events a year, 4 of them are singles, 2 of them are teams, that's actually pretty balanced and fairly good. Like, especially if you mix the teams events, so you have like time to like plan your team and get it all together. Like, I love this part at the moment. It's actually list submission tonight for Immortal Chilli's, which is the team event next weekend. And I literally just checked my phone before recording, and I had 2 messages from different people being like, so should I change my list to this, or is this unit better than this? And this is my most favorite part about teams, is everyone's like just like in the boiling pot trying to get it all sorted. It's very exciting.
That's great, because I still don't know what faction I'm going to play.
Yeah, that is beautiful. With 3 hours left to go, you have plenty of time.
That's fine. I can upload my list whenever.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Oh, true. Yeah, one of the TOs. Dang it. Oh, beautiful. Okay. Let's go. For the next question then, what do you think of the New Zealand meta, and is it strong? So, like, if you compare our meta to other countries' metas, so let's say like Australian meta, which obviously you've played in ANZTC, which is Australian New Zealand team championship. You've played against a couple of the Australians, and you've also gone to WTC with obviously Team New Zealand, and you played in the War Masters event, which is the singles event. So you've played in a few different metas. What do you think? How do you think they compare to New Zealand, the New Zealand meta, where it comes to like lists, not necessarily player strength right now, but just like the lists and how the lists are created, how strong are people's armies? Like when you open up BCP and you look at what lists people are taking, you're like, oh, that's all right, or oh god, these are actually kind of crazy. Like, what's your thoughts?
I think it's an interesting question, because what I found when we did prep for WTC was our lists and our meta and our way of thinking is probably a lot more similar to Australia in terms of list design, the way we see the game, the way we want to approach the game. It's probably a lot closer to what Australia does. I don't know if that's just we're in this kind of little bubble by ourselves, or because Australians are known for coming up with wacky lists that no one understands, right? I don't think we're quite that, because we've got a bit of US influence. Everyone kind of follows out of war, and we get all our information from overseas. Because I mean, the fact is, we don't get that many events. We don't have that super top tier elite professional players, so we absorb information from overseas, and we've kind of got this little hybrid where we also put our own stamp on it. I think the meta is healthy in a way that we do have that top level. You know, Team New Zealand did really well overseas at WTC this year, and individually, like how many New Zealanders were kind of in the top 50 in War Masters as well, right? And playing, because we both played War Masters, and I think for the first 3 rounds or 4 rounds didn't really have any issues. And I played against people from Netherlands, from local Belgium, and just around. I played someone from Romania who was on their WTC team, and I think. And people that have played me in New Zealand, you know, I'm pretty average. It's. I don't think it's that much of a gap. I mean, with someone like the US team, the French team, Poland team, the way a lot of systems are in place in their country, especially France. Oh my God, they have 3 separate leagues for teams, where you bring your buddies to create a team, and then you have to fight your way to League One before you even get considered for the national team. Like that cutthroat mentality of player selection. And Poland, where every year they run their national singles league, and the highest placing person becomes captain and selects the team. Like when the entire nation systems for 40k is all connected and pushes towards that elite kind of top 10, then that produces a different caliber of player, right? And we don't really do that. I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't, because that would be really interesting to see, but we just don't have the numbers, or the kind of framework in place to do that. But when I played Alexander Sacco, for example, at War Master, it's just like, yep, round 1, okay, round 2, okay, round 3, yeah, fine. Hit Sacco, it's like, is this 40k? I don't really know what's happening here, and just I think I killed 1 rhino and got table turn 3. Like I don't even know what happened.
Yeah. To be fair, you were playing against one of the strongest armies in the game right now, which was Thousand Suns, right? So
Yeah, but one of the best players, and
yeah,
someone on the French national team.
yeah, yeah. Nah,
To be fair, he made it to the final, so I'm okay with
yeah,
that.
hey, yeah. It's always nice when like whoever beats you at a tournament ends up placing really well. You're like,
Yeah,
oh, well, I only
yeah.
lost to like someone that was really good. Like,
Yeah,
that's always good.
exactly. But no, I think overall our meta is, in terms of the way we construct lists and things like that, probably a hybrid. And I think a lot of it is dependent on terrain, because traditionally New Zealand in the past, WTC has only been around for the last couple of years. So previously we had the Kraken terrain, which is an old 8th and 9th edition terrain, and for a lot of clubs, terrain is a big investment. They have to try and collect things over the years, and then it'll be a bit of starter sets, a bit of old G-Dub sets, a bit of the old Imperialist, or the Sector Imperialist stuff. So you get this mismatch hops. So every time we prepare for a singles event, I know the first thing I go is, what is the terrain setup?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been to the Wellington events, like when Properly Cocked first came out, it was a lot of borrowed tables. Super cool because they're all themed. There's like the desert table, there's the ice table.
They are
But one
wild.
I remember distinctly one table was just round mountain mounds, like these polystyrene. They're all painted, they look real nice, but you can't hide behind a circle. It's impossible.
Yeah.
You cannot hide behind us. The lines of sight is just insane. Of course, my opponent had Elder, and I was playing full Tau Shooty, so that worked out for me. Sorry, Matt. But it's, we go, what is the terrain? Is it GDub format? Is it WTC? Is it, we don't have a lot of UK TC here, but that influences the meta inside kind of UK. And I know people playing different things, right? So yeah, I think the meta kind of depends on the tournaments being run in country as well. And then what is the ultimate format that people are trying to compete in?
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I think terrain format really does, like a meta evolves around the terrain format. And I think New Zealand still hasn't settled on what they want to do. Mainly WTC now, but there's still a bit of Games Workshop layouts. Like Rotorua really like the Games Workshop layout. So their events are often a hybrid of WTC tables and Games Workshop tables. So you have to build your list that you can deal with kind of both. Tate and myself, when we played our game, we were like, because we were on a Games Workshop, like one of the layouts, I can't remember which one, but we were like, this looks weird because we're so used to playing on WTC that we're like, okay, so we just both took like 5 minutes before we even turned the clock on, just like figuring out like lines of sight. Or like, okay, where can I hide? Where am I safe? It changes so much of your thinking depending, because you get so used to certain things. So you kind of get these creature comforts, and then that will also go into your list building. If you have these comforts, like, oh, I know we can take this because it can hide here. When you change the terrain,
or it can go through here or something.
Yes. But then when you change the terrain, you're like, oh, okay, this is actually worse, or this is better. Like I remember, was it last year? Corn Lord of Skulls was ripping through America with the Games Workshop terrain because it could just touch in and see absolutely everything. Whereas like on WTC, they're completely unplayable because of how the ruins work there. So it's like a unit that is...
Not going to lie, when you said Rotorua runs a Games Workshop for me, that was literally the first thing that came in my head.
It's beautiful.
I need to go get the Lord of Skulls again.
Yeah, dust that bad boy off and give it a run. Yeah. But this thing is like, it makes you think about different things. And yeah, you're 100% correct. That is what actually involves the meta. It's not the people that involve the meta. It's what terrain sets you're playing on, Another thing is what armies are like easily accessible. Like New Zealand, the cost of models isn't cheap. Like it is much more expensive than pretty much anywhere else in the world. So the armies that are a bit cheaper, like everyone and their mums has a Custodes army or an Imperial Knight army because they're the cheapest armies to get. I remember when Custodes got good in 9th edition, I went to a tournament. I actually took Custodes myself, so I was part of the issue. But I think there was 9 out of the 30 people were running Custodes. They're an easy army to paint, easy army to buy because they're the cheaper, because the cost per point is pretty good, that a lot of people get them. And that is actually a thing that New Zealanders consider when taking army lists. And it's also why you see like there's 3 AdMech players in New Zealand, because it's just atrociously expensive. It's expensive even if you're buying them in the UK. Here it's like you have to take out your second and third mortgage to pay for an
Yep.
AdMech army.
Yep.
Like,
Yep. GSC, Sisters, AdMech.
yes,
Not to
yes,
mention they're not easy armies to play. The upfront
yes.
financial investment, the painting requirement, and model availability as well, right? Like
Yeah, it's
we get
huge.
all of our stock from Australia.
Yeah.
Not to mention like online web orders only. It's just sometimes it's just impossible to get models.
Yep. No, exactly. Yeah, it's just legitimate availability is. I think I ordered a box of commandos for my Orc army that I'm playing next weekend, and it was like one of the only boxes of Kill Team commandos that was in the country. And I was like, oh god, like I'm glad I found it, but like it
Yeah.
took like 5 different stores to find the one commando box that ended up having it. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, so like, that is actually an issue. When in America, you just go to the next states, and then you just buy it online and you just be able to get it, right? Like, there's not as much of that, like, I don't know, tightness of the models and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that is another thing that like there is sometimes just slightly suboptimal lists because of model availability, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's everyone at every level. It's either budget or it's accessibility or it's something. But I feel like it's a bit more exacerbated in the New Zealand meta.
Yeah. I think though, to be fair, there are probably 2 layers to that. There is kind of the I want to say the Team New Zealand kind of, because we all share and we help each other out with models. And if someone wants to try a list, there's always probably a way to get something to play, to test, and to try.
Yeah.
So we can adapt to meta changes and latest rule changes and things like that quite quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas not everybody has that luxury, right? So you've got kind of
Exactly.
this bigger middle chunk of people who are probably well known for being faction specialists because they just play the one army.
Yes. Yeah, and that is a big thing in New Zealand as well, is faction mastery. I feel like there's more people here that play 1 or 2 factions. Like Tim, I've never seen him play something that isn't Chaos Knights, and he is probably one of the best Chaos Knight players in New Zealand because of that, because he only plays Chaos Knights. It's stuff like that. It's actually like really.
He does on Kroot. He does on Kroot.
There's probably a reason why he hasn't played those. Like I love Kroot. They're one of my favorite model lines, but yeah, not necessarily the best army in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like that is like a really interesting thing. And also I do want to shout out when you say borrow models for the tournament next weekend. I'm borrowing models from Jamie, from Ryan, from Dylan, from Patricio. So thank you all for all the models you're supplying my team. I appreciate you all.
Fantastic. We were joking. Because we've been looking at all the model approvals and seeing what's come through, and offering. I'm lending out a few models as well. But we should just open like a model lending bank as part of the tournament.
That'd be so good. Yeah.
Yeah.
People would pay. If it was like $10 to borrow some models, like people would pay it. That's actually awesome.
Yeah, maybe we won't charge people. Yeah. We'll just find a way. But if you break it, you buy it.
That's beautiful. Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay. So the next question is kind of a trickier one, and it's, do you think there is innovators of list design of model, of the army lists in New Zealand? Like, is the people that are like trying new things, really trying things on the edge, and like testing to see if this will work? Like Australia, as you alluded to earlier, do these wacky lists that sometimes just become the next best thing in 40k. So like, do you think New Zealand has a little bit of that in here?
Not as much that I've seen. We do tend to follow probably the US and Europe meta a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
There have been 1 or 2 skew lists that have come out. We were kind of hold on, but the game itself, it's so balanced at the moment. Like outside of a team's environment, you don't tend to skew all that much, right?
Yeah,
at least that I haven't seen. I'd say innovators, yes, but until they play in a tournament.
Yeah.
And then they win, you don't tend to see it as much.
Yes, yeah. I also think because there's so much more knowledge out there, is innovators are like most things are a lot more obvious nowadays. Like if something's good, it's like there's only the really rare outliers, like the GSE Outlander claw list or the stuff like that, which is it's been there for 6 months, right? Since the Codex came out, that has been there, but it's only just been found recently.
Yes.
So stuff like that, there's still a little bit of innovation, but like, Ironstorm is Ironstorm, Gladius Task Force is Gladius Task Force, like all this kind of stuff. Like there might be new units to add, like the John Lennon with the 3 units of Deathwing Knights and the Eradicator and Repulsor unit. There's some innovation there, but it's a little like add-ons to something a formula that's already there instead of a brand new kind of encapsulation, which is like the GSC Outlander Claw or Biophagus, is it Bio? Whatever, Brood Surge.
Biosynthetic.
Biosynthetic Brood Surge, yeah. Like those are a bit more out there, right? Yeah, I would agree. I do think that there is people that we have a really good community of people that want to try things. I think that's like definitely there. I think everyone's like 80% of their list is probably like the average meta around the world, and then there's 20% is like I know I do this specifically. Is like I want to have like that one butterfly, that one unique thing in my list that's like, oh, no one else is trying this, so I'll always try and like build a little bit differently for a couple of reasons. One, because I want to try out new things, right? It's more exciting than just trying exactly what's the quote unquote best thing at the moment. But also people aren't practiced into the things that are slightly off meta, right? So you take something that people aren't super used to. You kind of get like, you tell them all the rules. I'm not trying to say like it's no cloak and daggers here. You say this is everything that this does, but they're just not used to like the play patterns of it. So if they haven't practiced against it, you kind of get like a little bit of advantage because you have the knowledge of it, but they don't.
Yep. I mean, it's like Ashley with his agents pre-Codex when he took it to a tournament and just nobody knew what it did. Right. Yeah. And then when the Codex came out, obviously it got so much better.
Yeah. I still need Ashley to prove to me that agents aren't D tier, because I put them in D tier in my most recent.
You did, yes.
So,
I saw that.
Yeah. And Ashley was definitely like, "What? Are you sure that they should be there?" And I was like, "Well, prove to me wrong." And next time I do a tier list, they'll get bumped up. So it's all on Ashley. If he can win a tournament or place well at a tournament, I'll bump them out of D tier. That is 100% a promise to him.
Best individual result at next weekend, maybe.
If he can even pop like top 10, I think that's an achievement for agents. Because there's what?
So,
how many teams are there for next weekend? 12?
12 teams.
12 teams.
Yeah, 50 people.
Yeah. So if you can get top 10, that's pretty huge. That's a huge. Yeah. Anyway, they're completely off topic there. Let's get back onto this topic then. What would you say is the strongest part? Oh, yeah, go.
I just thought of something. Back to the previous question, the innovators.
Yes.
I also think it's not necessarily we don't innovate. It's that we generally don't have the same mindset when we test lists as well. Talking into the Australia team last year and talking to some of the Europeans and someone like Innes Wilson, right? When testing something new, they'll probably put 40 reps into it.
Yeah.
Before they go, okay, this doesn't work, we'll move on, and they'll play against other really good players on meta lists, right?
Yeah.
It's just so hard to do here as well.
Yeah.
Because it's more of a hobby for us. We don't have people with that kind of dedicated time.
We're also very spread out here, right? Like, trying like unless you're in like a pocket with a couple of competitive players, it can be hard to find constant games to tune through.
Yeah. Talking to Dave Gaylard, right? He's going, I'll change something in my list, and to make sure if it works, I'll just pop 20 reps with Vic. And okay, cool. I don't get 20 reps in like half a year.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's my next 3 tournaments. What are you talking about?
Yeah. It's just a very different kind of culture, I think. And hopefully with building up more community, competitive scene and people wanting to do more practice, we can get that kind of level of reps as well, because it's so important.
100%. Yeah, I think reps is like the best way to get better at the game. Like 100%, just understanding your army, understanding everyone else's army better is the best way. Like, I think that's what takes you from being a good player to a great player, is not just understanding your army, but understanding every army and how they want to play, so then you can beat how they play.
Yeah. Just going back to the Alexander Sacco game that I had at Warmaster, we showed up, we started to deploy. He's like, so I've had 300 reps with T-Suns.
That is absurd. That is actually absurd.
I went, that's awesome, dude. This is my 3rd game with Blood Angels.
That is beautiful, yeah. I think there would probably be less people in New Zealand that will play 300 games in their lifetime than he has played just
with one faction.
Yeah.
With one faction and one edition.
That is immense.
Nuts.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Props to him, though. Like, that's the dedication that you really need to be one of the best players in the world, and Sacco is like one of the best players, right? Like, he's
absolutely,
he's amazing. Cool. Okay, on to the next question then. What would you say is the strongest part of New Zealand players? Like, is there a certain archetype of list? Is there a certain play style that New Zealand is known for or best at? So one of the things that I thought of a lot is people, New Zealanders play very safe. Like, I don't think aggression is very much not the common type of play in New Zealand. Even though there's quite a few World Eaters players, there is a lot of games is played from turns like 3 to 5, and there's a lot less of playing like finishing games by turn 3. I'd say there's a lot more like, all right, let's stage. Okay, you haven't done anything after your turn round? Cool. I'm actually okay here. I'm just going to keep playing this like slow game, even if you have an aggressive list. One of the comments I got at WTC this year playing War Masters, I was playing Kai on Tau, so like I'm going to play as a little bit of a baby. Like I'm just going to be very careful. But they're like, oh, why are you not being aggressive? Why are you not? This should be here. Like you can advance, get them out and shoot, and like all this kind of stuff. And that's just how they play. It's like, oh, well, we just play faster. We play hard. We try and get the game done. Whereas I'm like, I'll play turns 3, 4, and 5, like especially Kaiwan, but like even other armies, right? Like I think that's just a very common thing that New Zealanders naturally do. What are your thoughts?
I just want to say Motka for life, Chris.
Yeah, no, exactly. We both started. Well, when I started playing competitively again, both of us were both on Tau, and we had the complete opposite mindsets of Tau. Was like Charlie was the most aggressive player that I knew with Tau, and I was the most passive player, and we constantly played each other. And annoyingly, Charlie usually got the better of me, which probably proves to you that Montcard is maybe better than Kaion. Not that I will ever actually admit to that, but
when your stuff keeps exploding in your own lines, I mean that's not something I can help.
Yeah. When I had like a Riptide exploding for D6 damage through my entire army, that was fun. But yeah.
No, you're absolutely right, because I got the same feedback last year from a few of the matchups and opponents I had. They're going, you're GSC. How come you're not just deep striking your entire army in my face turn 2? I'm like, why? It doesn't give me more points. It doesn't stage me up or set me up better for the next turn. It just gives you more things to kill and like kind of talk through my process. And I think we're super open about some of these things as well. Like the games I played, I try and talk to my opponents. This is my intent. This is what I'm trying to do, and just like telling them what I'm trying to do in terms of my game plan and what decisions I'm trying to make them think about, and along those lines. And I think we're just getting more and more collaborative and open about how we play the game as well, which is really good to see. But I think you're right. Overall, we are a little bit more conservative. With outliers. I mean, I'm by nature a very aggressive player.
Yes.
I started in 8th edition with Raven Guard, where turn 1, if I go first, I redeploy 1,800 points of my army like 9 inches away, and I just move up. So jump packs and Master of Amber, Centurions, all that kind of stuff, right? And if I win second, I just lost. So it's great. So having to learn to dial that back a little bit, actually learn how to play the game, and get used to the rhythm and the flow. But I think we are quite conservative. We don't like to lose units. Whereas I see some of the other people, they'll put more units out and maybe bait more interaction and then try and trade in that and win by their more technical skills. Combat armies getting more of the things right when they do the polens and consolidates, and then the way they charge and things like that. I think outside of the top levels here, you won't see a lot of that kind of interaction. And we tend to lean more towards shooty armies, I feel.
Yes, 100%. Vehicles and shooty armies is the New Zealand average meta. I think if you tick slightly more for vehicles, you're always in a good spot in New Zealand, because everyone and their mums has either Imperial Knights or Chaos Knights or both. And
Imperial Guard. There's a lot of Guard players.
And there's a lot of Guard players that have like 7 Liber Russes as well. So like there's like a lot of vehicles, and even the like Space Marine Ironstorm. There's been like 3 or 4 Ironstorm players. Like there's been a lot of just heavy vehicle armies that are always prevalent. Every edition there's always a couple of skew like vehicle lists, and New Zealand always has a dozen of them and circulating in the meta. Whereas I feel like most metas probably only have 1 or 2 of them. You have to take that little bit extra for them in New Zealand than you have to anywhere else. Which is also bizarre, because you'd think a shooting army would be more aggressive. But we definitely do play them that like, oh, if you come out, we'll kill you. So just don't come out, and then we'll just sit here the entire game, and that will be okay.
I do wonder if it's a legacy of, previously there wasn't as much terrain, obscuring terrain, that kind of stuff. So shooting armies did have that natural advantage. You're sitting back, you've got 72-inch guns or something. You're going, cool, I'm just going to shoot you from here. And, back in the day, I would lose the game turn 1 because there was just nothing to hide behind, and my opponent had a full gunline army, or like old AdMech, 8th edition AdMech with the mortal wounds and the master attachment. Holy crap, right? Whereas now we play a lot more WTC, so we're like, a lot of people are changing into more infantry based, a lot more smaller trading units, playing the WTC angles, because we get used to a lot of firing angles and where to stand, and so there's a lot more consideration taken into that.
Yeah, I definitely think WTC also plays better, slightly passive, like not super passive, but I think it's definitely, I hold this angle, you can't with your movement get to see me, so if you come any further forward, I'll be the first one to shoot, but if I come forward before you, then you'll get to shoot me. So you kind of have a lot of standoffs, especially if it's a shooting mirror a lot of the time, which is one of the reasons why I think the Sisters Battle list at the moment with the triple X assist kind of breaks that pattern, and it kind of is absolutely absurd. I don't know, like, I know this is going to date this podcast a little bit, but to be honest, I don't really care. Triple X is absurd. It is busted, and it needs to be fixed. It is.
It's weird, right? Because it was really good. I mean, I think Vic VJ was running Triple Exorcist with his sisters a few months ago, and then it just fell off, and nobody ran it. Everyone knew how to deal with it. It just wasn't points of it. It got a points increase back in the index, and then when the Codex came out, everyone went look at Penitent, and Penitent didn't really do the job. Pivoted to Bringers, and now all the points went up. They're like, Exorcist. They were good this whole time.
Yeah, it's funny. It's so funny. This is something that I always love about points changes, is you pivot to things, and then the thing that you pivot to has sometimes been better than the thing that you took in the first place, which is just so hilarious how sometimes, it's so often that actually is the case, that an army doesn't get nerfed, it gets side graded, but the side grade is actually an upgrade.
All right. So what you're saying is I should bring Triple Manticore next weekend.
Triple Manticore? They get rerolls, right?
They get only against units of 5 or more models. Full rerolls though.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Pretty good.
Okay, I can
nice.
see that. I can see that. The real issue with the Exorcist, though, and I go, this is still totally off topic and really doesn't matter at all, but it's the Miracle Dice. Being able to force through 6 damage, because D6 damage on the Exorcist cannon is just silly. It is very silly.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Miracle Dice as a mechanic is just, and we thought Aldo was bad, but Sisters basically get unlimited Miracle Dice.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the guaranteed 6s if you still take the Triumph. It's absolutely bonkers. But anyway.
50 points. I'd pay that. It's five 6s in a game.
Yeah, 5 6s, plus you get an extra couple of buffs. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's so good.
Yeah, that is very good. Okay, back to let's get this train back on the rails, okay? Even though it was me that was diverged it off, okay?
This is what happens when you invite Tactical Chilli on the podcast. It's just I got to channel the Patricia and just tangent.
Yeah, the chaos has to ensue.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, this is the last actual question I have before we each kind of go into a bit of banter afterwards. But this is also like one that I want you to answer first. So I'm going to say the question, let you have a think, and then I want you to answer it. It's like, do you think the average New Zealand player is better, on par, or worse than other countries' average player?
I mean, speaking from personal experience, I think we are probably a bit better.
Yeah.
For most countries. Poland and France specifically, no.
Okay,
I would
there's outliers, sure.
Countries where there's a systematic kind of, not a training program, but in a community, there is this culture of people trying to make it into the national team and therefore put in the effort to get better, will have on average better players, better meta, better games. The amount of games they play is honestly obscene.
Yes.
I don't know how they have so much time. But, when we played in War Masters, for example, just the other countries, and I know you personally played LVO as well.
Yes.
Countries with a bigger population will just have a lower average by default because the same amount of people are probably in the top sort of tier, right? So you won't have more than, even in the US, maybe 30 with skills like the Ottawa guys, John Lennon, and
there's definitely incredible players from all these places, right? We're not trying to say that. We're talking about the average Joe that rocks
the
up.
The average, but that's the thing. Outside of say the top 50 players, because I know the US kind of intake team in the academy has maybe about 50 players. Sure. Outside of that, it's going to drop sharply down when you take the average because it's the wider tail.
Yes.
So the average player, I think, in New Zealand would be probably a bit better.
Yeah, I would actually have to agree with you. When I first went to LVO, or I went to Bay Area Open in 2021, I think it was 2021, and then I went to LVO in 2022. And, 2023, whatever it was. I was surprised that I put so much prep into my LVO army. I played so much. My first 3 rounds at LVO, I played against like 2 people who had never played Tau before. Like never played against Tau before. And I was like, what do you mean? Like I tried to practice every army that I thought I'd be going into. Like it was just this absolute crazy like idea that they didn't. I had to explain my entire army's rules. I had to explain what Sunshark bombers did at the time. Like they just did not know how they functioned. It blew me away. And I was like, again, this is a very small sample size, but I would like that never happened in New Zealand. I think I only ever had to explain what a Sunshark did once. It was more likely that I would bring them to the table and then my opponent would just start groaning, like, which is like par for the course to be fair when you play Tau. So
Yep.
But yeah, I generally agree. But then War Masters was definitely higher. But I think to go to War Masters, you probably have a bit more excitement than LVO. I think LVO is more of like a con, whereas like you go to LVO because it's like it's the mecca of 40k in the US, right? Like you go there as this exciting thing. You go with all your friends. You go out, you see some shows afterwards. You go out and eat with your friends. Like you do a lot of stuff there, which is.
I want to hear about these shows you went to. Different show.
Yeah, wrong kind of shows. Wrong kind of shows. It's a good thing at least probably won't listen to this.
Think so.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. Yeah, I had the same experience at War Masters as well. Is because it's usually the coaches and the team getting warm up rounds. So going into sure, it's how many were there this year? Like 500 plus at day one. Yeah, with most people dropping out to get a break in between teams and singles, but still, it's the traveling team with the playing team. So usually it's kind of the people that are close to but didn't make it into the team, that kind of stuff, who are so passionate and want to play and have played a lot. But there were locals. So one of the actually my first round was against a lovely gentleman who was a local, because for Belgium being so central, a lot of people they're like, okay, it's an hour drive away to England. Let's just go and play some 40k, right? See all the countries coming in. And I'm so jealous because we had to fly 26 hours.
It was a long time.
Yeah. But this lovely lad, he ran Canis with Custodes.
Okay.
And I ran Index Blood Angels because I'm going, okay, Canis. Haven't really played against that too much. And I'm new to Blood Angels, just getting some reps in. And he walks up and sticks Canis right in the middle of the table to do sabotage in the middle run. And I'm like, cool, that's a 4-inch charge for my 5-man death company. So I just popped it. And one guy, he went, oh, that's never happened before. And I was talking to him about his local scene where he plays and, kind of the community that he plays. And he's going, yeah, a lot of people run big robots in the middle because no one can deal with it. And I'm scratching my head going, well, back at home, nobody does that because it dies turn 1. 100% dies turn 1. So it's a little bit of that. And I don't know if that's kind of like the average play experience, but definitely I felt like, going in, I felt like anyone from, say, one of our GTs probably could have won that game fairly easily.
Yeah, exactly. Custodes are quite a strong army into Blood Angels, right? So like it's an interesting one. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think again, I think it goes back to that aggression thing as well. I think just Europe in general is just more aggressive, and they're like, oh, well, you won't, and then like just a kind of assumption that the first person is the aggressor. Whereas like it's just not the case in New Zealand at all. But I digress. It doesn't really matter. But I would have to agree though that this might be a bit of like patriotic bias coming in here because we're both obviously from here. That New Zealanders are slightly better. But like it also shows we have had 2 WTCs now. We've gone to 2 WTCs. We went in 2023 and 2024, and we got best newcomer last year. Obviously, I didn't, but Team New Zealand, because I didn't go last year, Team New Zealand came 15th last year, getting best newcomer, which was absolutely amazing. Never gone before. And then this year, we came 9th, which is an absolutely incredible achievement. And we got favorite team, which is another huge, I think that's like one of the best honors you can get at WTC is we got every team that we played against thought we were the best team that they played against. How awesome is that? You can't really ask for more than that. So I think just from those alone, like those are our first 2 years, and when we first showed up, we had a fairly green team last year as well. We had some new. We did have old Johnny Lasson, But we had some. Like,
Oh, we had Johnny last on. We had Johnny last on.
yeah. So you did have Johnny.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, you did have Johnny
Yeah.
last on.
But he was still Johnny Larson. He only powered out to be Johnny
Right,
Larson this year.
right. Yeah. But so you had some good players, but you had some like fairly like new players that went as well, or players that weren't really super established at the scene yet, but which now are like also those players now are very strong players, but they started off like maybe not as strong in the scene, and you guys did incredibly well. You did have David Gaillard to help out for sure. He's
him. Yeah.
He's all right. He's all right. Like,
he's okay. He did all right.
He's an okay player.
Lost first round though, so
Yeah. Oof. But New Zealand has had a really good track record at this highest level of 40k. Like, yes, we haven't won it. We haven't come in the top 3, but we've progressed every year. We've gotten better every year, and we got in the top half the first year we came, which I think just shows the caliber of player New Zealand has. So I don't really think we're tooting our own horn when we say that our average player is probably quite good.
If we're talking about averages, last year was 36 teams and we came 15th. Yep. And then this year was 38 or 40 teams and we came 9th. 38, 40 teams and we came 9th. I think it was 40 teams, yeah. So the way they do their seeding system, we are bottom of C2, top of C1 at the moment, depending on how many teams participate next year, right? So it's going to be really interesting.
So it's very exciting. Like, I think we've done like an incredibly good job. And I think going back to what I said at the start, like New Zealanders embody what competitive 40k should be, which is being super friendly, being very clear on what you're trying to achieve. Like, hey, can you just check if I can do this thing? Like it's this communication game that New Zealanders are really good at. Like, it's very hard for me in New Zealand to have a game where I'm like, what are you trying to do here? And if I do ask that, they're like, oh, sweet, this is what I'm trying to do. And then they'll go through all the steps. It's completely different. Whereas a couple of my games at LVO and a couple of my games at War Masters, that it's not cloak and daggers, but they're like, oh, I'm trying to do this. Oh, and then like, oh, do you want me to see what you can do? Like, no. I'll just figure it out myself. It's like, oh, okay, like I'm here to help. Like, we're both playing this game, right? Like, it's just a bit of a different vibe, and I feel like that actually helps you become a better player when you're both trying to help each other. You play a cleaner game, you play a much easier game to understand, but you're also like, oh, you're trying to be 9 inches away. Cool, you're 9 inches away. Easy, like it makes everything so much better.
Makes the game faster as well. You're not arguing, you're not contesting things, you're not like triple measuring your opponent. Okay, you deep strike and you have to be 9 inches away. We can tidy that up later. Let's do something more important for now. Yeah.
No, exactly right. So do you have any closing thoughts about the meta in New Zealand that you'd like to bring up? Anything in particular that you want to like glow up, like any areas that are notable in New Zealand, any players that you want to shout out, anything at all? Is there anything that you would like to shout out before we close up?
Got to shout out Tactical Chilli, Patricio in particular, who's the driving force behind us. I'm sort of, I get dragged along and I get to do things. He's the one that's always got the drive and the passion, being who he is, and just like he just wants to run events, be involved in the community, talk about 40k. Like, you can literally talk to him about 40k for hours, and he just does not stop. When we record our podcast episodes, usually we keep on going for another 2 hours after we stop recording, just because we love talking about it. Although the real swearing comes out afterwards. True. Chris has been on a couple of those. So just trying to keep everybody, drive that passion. Thank you to everyone that supported us and kind of been involved. And then play more 40k, play good games. Come to everyone's events. Yes. Hopefully Chris will drive some more community engagement in Dunedin, get some 2K games down there. We'll go down. That's the goal. SouthCon, get involved in SouthCon this year, Chris. We'll try and come and play. But just because there's probably 3 or 4 established kind of areas now. Auckland. There's the boys up north in Whangarei that run events as well. Wellington, Central North Island, we saw in Manawatu, and there's like Rotorua and Hamilton, which is more Auckland region. And then Christchurch. Hopefully Taos will start running some 2K competitive as well. I really want to go to one of these narrative events. I've heard so much about these like donkeys that have psychic powers and things. It actually sounds really fun. I just don't have time to commit. But it actually sounds like a different, completely different way to play, which is awesome. But I guess for the competitive scene, yeah, check out what Team New Zealand are doing. Shout out to Finn and the boys in the team. I think the first cut of applications is done, and we've got the team going in doing some practice, and the team is already deep in prep mode for WTC next year, which is really good to see.
We're really trying to bring it as hard as we can next year, which is going to be awesome. I can't wait to see how the team grows this
top 3 next year. Oh,
top 3,
calling it top 3.
That's the dream. That's the dream. We've got to get seed 1. Got to get into seed 1. If we're not in it already,
seed 1, right?
we got to get there.
Yeah. Sorry, Canada.
Yeah, we got to topple over someone, so we'll see who it is. Now, very cool. And I do want to shout out Tactical Chilli. The link to their YouTube channel and the podcast will be in the description of this video. They do absolutely amazing events, and they do an absolutely amazing podcast that just goes over the scene in New Zealand. So if you are interested in finding out about how the tournaments are going in New Zealand, and that they do before and after podcasts of the different events that they run and other events as well. So they don't just do their own events, they cover other people's events too. So you get a really great overview of everything 40k in New Zealand. So if you're interested in stuff like that and you want to have some utter chaos with Patricio and Charlie talking to each other, it's a really good podcast to jump on board, and I would recommend it to anyone. It's great for a car journey as well, because you'll have some good chuckles along the way. It's very entertaining.
Oh, true. Yeah. If you win an event, we'd love to talk to you.
Ooh, yeah. Sometimes even if you come second, you get to go on. But I think we'll close it up there. Thank you very much, Charlie, for coming on. Really appreciate you coming on. It's always going to be a pleasure to talk to you, and I love talking to 40k with you. So an absolute pleasure.
Mate, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah. And that's it. Catch you guys all next time, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.